Hey, I'm Chad Jarnagin, and I'm in Franklin, Tennessee, and work at the People's Church. The short and long of it, of just growing up around music here and there, like listening to Michael Jackson and things like that, that got me intrigued about, hey man, I mean, just by nature, I was just singing with it, and I was actually hitting the same notes that he was singing. That was before my voice changed, and not much changed after it changed. So, man, I just began to fall in love with it, and like, hey, I'm kind of digging this. I'm not bad at it. I mean, at least my friends and family tell me I'm cool at it, and I just started doing that. And after a while, it was like I had opportunities. People wanted me to be up in front of a mic doing something. So, you know, doing that through college. And while I was in college, I had the opportunity to go on tour. And I needed no excuses to get out of college. So I was just like, yeah, I'm going. And it was actually with a gospel trio kind of thing. And it was cool for what it was. I traveled the states, and it was a blast. And the more I got to do that, and the more it became part of who I was, I realized that was what I was wired to do. And it wasn't a stylistic thing for me initially. It was kind of like I just have to do this. This is what I love to do. I've never found anything that I love to do as much as just making music. And then as I started growing, I wanted things to challenge me, and had set some bars and started just trying to jump, see how high I could jump. And songwriting and everything was a part of that. And so, one door would close, another one would open, and I would just walk that way and see what it's going to be, because I had no idea what it was going to be. Because I think all of us at one point, you either, as a little boy, growing up, you want to be a football player or a baseball player professionally. That's what you want to do, or you want to be a rock star. And so I think I tried to choose the latter, and tried, just kind of walk down that road because I love being in front of people, and it just felt natural, and continued opportunities open up. So coming to Nashville was a trip. Mine is a little unique, honestly, from what I've heard other people say. I had a couple friends that wanted to move to Nashville, and we were all kind of living around Knoxville, Tennessee, just a few hours east of here. And they were like, yeah, man, I want to go and, just pursue music. And I had been doing music through college and afterwards, and just kind of was doing that and getting paid to do it. And I got to a place in life where I was just like, I don't know. It was just a weird season. I just kind of started giving it up a little bit and just wanted some normality. And so here's my two friends that want to move to Nashville, and I'm like, okay. And so we moved to Nashville together and had just a cheap apartment in the ghetto, and what felt like the ghetto. And I couldn't get away from the music. Like when I first joined up in certain circles of hanging out with people that I knew, and like I really wouldn't let them know what I have done with music. And I had toured and traveled and recorded and things. And because I wasn't popular, so it wasn't like they were going to recognize me from anything. So I just, started, having more opportunities again. And I was like, man, I just cannot get away from this thing. I have to do music. And it's funny because, I'm the one that stuck around Nashville, where my other friends that I came with actually didn't stick around, where I was the one that didn't really care to come, but I'm the one that stuck around. So I think anybody could write a book on this topic of moving to Nashville and chasing a dream, because that's seems to be what a lot of people want to do, and it's either L.A., Nashville, or New York. And so when I came to Nashville, like I said, initially I wasn't really pursuing the music thing. I just wanted a change, and Nashville was a cooler, bigger city than Knoxville, less bright orange from the deer hunters and football players guys. And it was really a cool change for me. And then when I started, like, just by the nature of the city, I was hanging out with friends that worked with record companies and that were aspiring artists themselves. And so I started realizing, this is just the culture here, and I got to rock and roll with it. And I began having opportunities once I started picking up the mic and started singing again. When people that I was hanging out with would provide opportunities. Hey, man, I know you're a great singer, which was really cool to hear because I got a lot of affirmation from people that kept me kind of pushing towards stuff. But man, like really the artistry thing, I think everybody ends up doing more than just artistry. I think people wait tables and then they get into the industry side of the world and they end up being like working with a management company or being an admin at a label or anything like that. There's so many publishers and all that kind of stuff that's here. I began having opportunities with, and I worked for an artist agency. We booked people, on the booking agency thing. I did that, and which worked with management and labels and all that. So that was my first kind of on the other side of just being an artist. I started getting, okay, this is how you interact, and this is how this works, and this person's important, and you got to be nice to this person if you want to play the game. And it's really about how ambitious you are. Like if you really want to come to Nashville and pursue something, I guess my thing is like I meet people all the time still just by being here. Young people that just move here, and they're like, hey, yeah, I'm pursuing a country deal or I'm pursuing a label deal and all that, and I got such and such that's interested in me, and he's a such and such of a co-writer that wrote such and such back in the 90s or whatever. I mean, you hear a lot of that because there's just a lot of that goes on. For me, one of the first bands that I started getting involved with, groups being here in Nashville, we shopped a lot of record deals with 4 or 5 labels here in town, and I got to be in the meetings with all the label people, and then the meetings with our entertainment attorney, and that was eye-opening because when there's a lot of paper and numbers flying around, like my head starts spinning. And like that's right brain people don't really care about that. They just want to go do what they do. And I was totally there. But then I understood that it was my livelihood on the line. I was like, okay, if I'm going to sign my life away to this, I'm going to have to figure this thing out. After doing many of those, I realized, there's a lot to this. And it's not for the faint at heart. I mean, that might sound cliche, but it's not. You got to have ambition, and you have to have the goods. I mean, there's a slice of the population that have the goods to do it, and you have to have it, or you're going to come and get eaten alive. On the Christian side of the world, it's really no different. It's a business, and if you have talent, and God has called you to do something, which most people that I talk to totally believe that they were called to move to Nashville and to pursue a Christian record deal. And, by no means would I be arrogant enough to say that they shouldn't, and I have all the answers, because I don't. But I hear a lot of that. But I also see over half of those people gone within 1.5 to 2 years. They move on because they want to go back home, or they do. And there's nothing wrong with that. You figure it out, and you have to go there. So, I mean, for me, I just kind of evolved with it and just kind of went with what was next and then another opportunity. And because I think that we're supposed to change with things. Some people are blessed to be able to do something for 20 years, and it's the same thing for that 20 years. Some people do 15 things in those 20 years, and that's kind of what they're supposed to do. Who knows? The state of Christian music today, like, I would be hesitant to even answer much, because I feel like I've removed myself from the standard industry as such. I mean, of having a publicist, having a label, having management, having a booking agent, and that whole thing. But there are a ton of people that I know that are still doing that, and that love it. And I mean, that's what they're made. That was what they were made to do. And I see hope. Like I know some of the people from behind the scenes, and their character and their integrity is very legit. I do believe that several years back, I think that part of Nashville's life and Christian music industry kind of took a bit of a hit, and a lot of stuff was going on behind closed doors of just like, it became a business to the sense of they forgot the calling. Some people would forget the calling on it and would forget the sacred aspect of what it was to be there for. And but I think from what I know, it just seems to be at a much better place. Technology has changed so much that's like you don't have to lean on the labels as much as you used to have to. I mean, when you have 20,000, 30,000 hits or plays on your MySpace, and you did that without a label, that's, probably not 20,000 different people, but there's a bunch of plays that they would never heard because it wasn't the labels doing to get out there. So I think the industry has had to change, but I also think that there is a spiritual temperature to bringing back the sacred aspect of knowing that, this isn't just an industry. This just isn't a business. This is something that we're equipping people that might have a calling on their life to bring their art out there to the rest of the planet. And so I would want to be positive about it, to say that, I know most of those guys out there from who I know their hearts, and they're great, and they're amazing artists that I would put on stage with the Killers or Coldplay or anybody else. They're amazing artists out there now. And so I think that that's really taken the industry a different place, because it's been shaken down, and like so many different companies and so many different people are no longer around it because of it just wasn't stable. But now I think that, with technology, I think it's really helped it to come around. But the spiritual temperature thing is just such a big deal. If the worship genre that's been created hopefully isn't just a genre. It shouldn't be, but it's meeting a need, because it seems like even all the Christian artists out there that are like don't necessarily have worship music made, it's not their thing, but they've all made worship records because that was the kind of the trend, and the label probably said, hey, we need to do this. It's a thing, it'll sell. So I think that that's been part of it, but we're people, and we're going to mess up, and we're going to, be very flawed and make mistakes. But the cool thing is when you're doing something that is showcasing or reflecting something that's way bigger than ourselves, I think there's a different facet to that and different elements to that as it would be just going and making a rock record, just to put people in the seats and move records. I think there's more to it than that, and hopefully it's at a good place. I feel like it's probably a better place than it has been. My title description is Creative Arts Pastor, and that's something that kind of evolved. I evolved into this thing because there was kind of some needs that needed to be tended to, and like before that though, when I was just straight up an artist and I was traveling and doing that and making records and doing that, I never thought that I'd be on staff at a church. I have actually been at this church for several years, and so the thoughts of being on staff coming from the artist standpoint really freaked me out, because I was like, whoa, that's not me, man. I don't know if I could do that. But then I started realizing that it's not a mold. It's kind of it's personality driven. It's like, what's your strengths? And man, we have a need for this, and that would work, and you could do that. That's how you're wired. And so that's just a really cool thing. And so doing that, there's so many different facts that I brought with me just from the history of my experience has brought so many different angles, fresh angles to what I do. Coming from an artistic background of creating stuff and looking at things through a different lens, I want to make Like my thing is I had to decide, this might be very important to kind of understand because everybody has to understand this at some point. Um, you have a choice. If you're going to do a career, go down a vocational route, um, as a believer, and my faith drives my life. I can't, whether I sold insurance or was, a professional baseball player, I would still have to allow my faith to drive my life. So just because I'm on staff at a church doesn't really mean that's, I still have to walk that out and live it out. But you have to decide whether or not you want to be the church as a believer. You have to decide whether you want to be the church from the outside or from the inside of the church walls. A lot of people that are part of the church in general stand from afar and they criticize and they're very cynical. It comes back to that a little bit, and I'll get back, but they're cynical and they're jaded about religion and the faith and church and organized religion. And I get that. I feel you. If it's not genuine and it's just religion, it's worthless. It is worthless. I know that sounds harsh, but it's like, well, at least they're trying to be good people. But if their faith is not alive and they're just following a bunch of rules, it's worthless. And so you have to decide as a believer whether or not you're going to be on the inside or the outside. And, God calls us all to do both. If we were all inside of the church working at a church, the world would be a more dark place than it is, And so I had to make that decision on, I wanted to help change the church and chase God from the inside out, And so that's really been my thing. And so now sitting back and doing that and working with a team that's very team-oriented. It's not a dictatorship. It's just like, we all have our own strengths and weaknesses, and let's work together to do this. And, creating services every week that, thousands of people come to, and then thousands more watch it online. There's a lot of things that the team all provides. It's not just one or two people can't do this. Even in a church half our size, you can't do it if it's just one or two people. You have to have a team. And being in Franklin, I get the artist side of the world. We have so many of them, and I can have a passing conversation with one of those guys, and I get it. I get their hearts. I see what it means to them to have people care for their families while they're out on tour, and that's part of my thing too. And I get it, and I think there's a reason why I am in that spot, because I have been there, and I hopefully understand to one degree or another. Now, I don't understand what Grammys and Dove Awards and all that thing is because I've never seen those. But, I do get, being out on the road and being away from home and being away from my family and friends. I get that for sure. So it's a cool place to be. And who knows what's going to happen from here. But, we're still writing songs, and I'm writing songs from, here. And if the church does them, that's fine. If they don't, that's fine. It's just that art. You don't really stop being an artist. It's in you. You just gotta let it be, and you're wired that way for a reason. And so you can act to your strengths. If you're working inside a church, organization, building, that kind of thing, you're gonna have issues, or my pastor would say issues. Yeah. You're going to have that. And, you have so many different people from so many different generations and cultures, backgrounds, preferences. That's the thing. It's so funny. A lot of people from the outside of the church would look at it, would look from the outside looking in, would be like, man, these guys are just all happy all the time and they all get along. Or they would even have the thought, or they know that nobody gets along, they're just putting on a mask and whatever. Well, that's really not the case. There's nothing like a body of people coming together and being 10 years old, 15 years old, 20 years old, 30, 40, 50, 60, even 70 years old, and all be in the same room together at the same time. That's unbelievable, you know? And so with that though, because we are people, we're going to have things come up that we're going to disagree on something. A situation like a song, stylistically, I mean, that's probably some more tension that, you do a song that's a little bit more progressive than others. That might get a little nudge or something, or you might hear a comment or see an email or something like that on they didn't agree with it or they didn't appreciate it. And yeah, you're going to get it. The cool thing is, I think you can try to appease everybody and say that we're going to try to be a variety show, and we're going to tickle these people and these people and these people and these people, or you're just going to kind of be what you feel like God's really doing in the moment, and doing your best as leadership to discern His heart and just go there. And I really truly believe that if people are peacemakers and they're pursuing God with their totality of who they are, I think that they press through their preferences and their opinions. Now, we all, myself included, have, like to have been heard about, well, I didn't like that, and that was stupid. Why do they do that? This isn't a rock show. I get that. We're all going to do that. But our point and within what we do is not to distract people from their Creator and responding to their Creator, but our responsibility is to enhance that and allow that to be there in this together, because there is something special about coming together and doing that. Some of the other issues that I've seen has been, there's been a situation where somebody was wearing something that might have been considered inappropriate by, certain standards. And so you get a little bit of that. Just, again, man, we're people, and we're going to have it. It's going to be, unless we all walk around wearing the uniforms, we're always going to have some kind of issues. It's just because we're people. We have about 75 to 100 people involved with our worship bands and vocals, like the people that we put on stage. So when people come in and they want to kind of go through the process of auditioning or whatever, there's a few mistakes that they can make, and it's I don't know, like you said, that there's really not really a formula that you should do this, and wear this, and talk like this, and bring this up. I don't think that there's that. Like, when people are just not genuine, when you're talking with people and they are putting on a bit of a thing to try to impress, I think everybody can kind of sense that that's kind of the thing. And it's the cool thing about this, and the cool thing about part of my job is it's not my job to police people's agendas, or things like that, or whatever their motives are. It's not my job to do that. And what we do, as far as protecting the platform, we take seriously what we do. So like I've said so much, we're people. We have fallen, and we're going to fall. But I think that there needs to be a standard. There's like a thing that we just kind of realize that that a lot of people see us up on stage, and so kind of need to have our crap together to a degree up front. So I think a lot of people, when they come in and they act like they do have it all together, that's fine, but it just needs to be, you got to be genuine. You got to be real about your flaws and your weaknesses and whatever, because we try to be. I try to be. Who knows if that actually works, but you just have to be real. And when you come to town, and when we don't get to know the depth of everybody's background, That's the thing. So most people come to town, they move here, and they were on, teams or whatever leading at church in their home church back where they're from. So naturally, they want to do that when they come here. And some are totally able to do that, and some aren't. And it's hard to let someone know that, we have a standard, and we don't take it lightly, but we also understand that we want people to be able to utilize their gifts that they've been given. So hopefully there's a place for that. But really, man, the bottom line is, if you're not a servant, a type person, if you're not a serving, giving type person, you're really probably not going to go through the process well, even if you're an amazing musician, because it's got to take that heart. That's the bottom line. So I think if you were to say that there was a couple mistakes or a few mistakes that people could make, is that, not really being willing to serve and give of yourself to others. Artists type people and performing type people tend to want to be catered to just by nature. I don't know why we are that way, but we tend to have that. So you just have to lessen that and understand that there's a bigger cause in mind for this thing, and you have to just kind of lessen yourself a little bit. So one of the things I try to tell people just in conversing with them is that coming from a youth background and being involved with our students way before I was involved with big church and anything like that, I try to tell some students that it's okay if you want to be a rock star. It's okay that you don't really you don't want to play with me on stage leading worship. You don't want to do that. That's okay. And so a lot of people make the assumption that, okay, well, I got to do something, so I want to do music. And so they run to the worship arts area and say, I want to sing, I don't want to play, I want to blah, blah, blah. And that's cool, but a lot of people want to do that just because it's an outlet. But it's not really their heart, and it's not really what they really, at the end of the day, that's not what they want to do. They want to be out opening up for U2 and Coldplay and, those guys. And that's what they want to do. And there's nothing wrong with that. And so when I get that from people just in talking with them, I'm like, you know what? Dude, if this is what you need to do, I say you go do it, bro. Go. There's nothing wrong with it. Don't think that you have to lead worship. Don't think that you have to play in the worship band. Don't. Just go. Because in the truest sense of art, as believers, you're going to be a worshiper, being who you're being created to be. So, it's interesting. I'll give the guys, the crew in Paramore, some love, because they've come out of our church here, and those guys, man, they're amazing. And you can tell when you see them on stage that they put on an amazing show, but you can just tell they're right where they need to be. If they were to, I don't think it was even on their radar to go try to make a Christian deal, but if they would have just been in the wrong place, because their heart is just, they don't have a lid or a cap on what they're doing. They're out there doing what they're doing. And it's amazing because they're free at it, and they have a bit of a bigger scope of God than a lot of people within the church leading worship do, because they think that it has to look this way and you have to sing this kind of hymn or you have to sing this passion song. And they think that there's a formula to it, and that's how you become a worship leader, and that's what you need to be doing forever, where we got to all step back and get a perspective that it's bigger than what we think it is. So I try to converse with people by saying, dude, if you just want to go play rock and roll, bro, go do it. If you want to be a country star, go do it, man. Just do it, because God's going to be pleased with you going out there and doing that, because He wired you the way you are for a reason. So be, So, yeah, that's just always been important to me to say to people, because not everybody gets that. They think, oh, I got to pursue Christian music, or I have to be a worship leader. And by no means does everybody need to do that. You know, I struggled with that for a long time, and then I realized, well, you know what? This is kind of who I am, and I'm fine with that. But I also just like to help set people free and understanding that, dude, just free your mind, man. God's bigger than this place. You know.